MGF whalers and struts are easy to assemble, two-sided hydraulic bracing systems designed to be used in conjunction with steel trench sheets. They are suitable for bracing small trenches typically encountered in utilities type work. Assembly commences by laying the hydraulic struts and whaler rails on timber skids. The hydraulic whaler struts are inserted into one of the whaler rails and locked in place using a whaler pin and R-clip. The second rail is then offered up to the strut and secured in the same manner. The frame is now assembled and it is possible to pump the struts out to the required width using the MGF bucket pump provided. MGF whaler struts contain single-acting hydraulic cylinders and should be used in conjunction with a single-acting MGF bucket pump. The bucket pumps are supplied with the relevant hoses and auto-safe biodegradable hydraulic shoring fluid. Prior to use, check there is sufficient hydraulic fluid within the bucket. If low, top up with the required water and auto-safe mixture. Autosave can be diluted with water to produce seasonal mixes. Before connecting the two-way bridle, make sure the bucket pump is in neutral. The female hydraulic connector connects to the male hydraulic connector on the whaler strut. Once both hose ends are connected, the flow regulator switch on the bucket pump should be turned to active and the isolation valves on the whaler strut are opened. The pump is now ready for use and should be pressurised manually. Once the frame is pumped out to the required width, then the isolation valves on the whaler strut should be closed, 2 turns clockwise, before the flow regulator switch on the bucket pump is turned to off. Now that the frame is at the required width, the end-safe struts can be assembled to those dimensions. The end-safe strut is assembled by sleeving the inner within the outer and securing them together at the correct width using a pin and an R-clip. The strut can then be lifted into place and secured to both of the whaler rails using pins and R-clips. Once in position, the pin connecting the inner to the outer can be removed. The end-safe strut for the opposite end of the whaler frame can now be assembled in the same way. Repeat the process for the second whaler frame. The frames are now ready for installing. Installation commences by excavating to a maximum of 700 mm below ground level. Lower the bottom frame into the excavation using an MGF 4-leg chain. Lay timber skids onto the bottom frame. Pack out between the frames so that the centre line of the top frame is at ground level. With the top frame at the correct level, the sheets can start to be piled, using the frame as a guide. The sheets must be handled and pitched using the MGF pitching shackle. Open the lever of the pitching shackle and line up the pin with the handling hole in the sheet, before closing the lever and locking the pin. MGF pitching shackles now feature a simple safety mechanism that prevents the accidental release of the sheet should the rope snag. Prior to lifting the sheet, the metal ring must be attached to the safety hook. Install 4 corner sheets using the frame as a guide. The sheets should be pushed gently into the trench using the excavator boom. Sufficient toe must be provided to ensure sheets cannot slip or slide. Ideally, the sheets should be driven so that the top of the sheet is accessible from ground level. To release the pitching shackle, simply flick the rope to remove the metal ring from the hook. A firm pull on the rope will now open the shackle pin and release the sheet. The top frame can now be connected to restraining chains and pumped out to fully preload the sheets. The remaining sheets can now be pitched and driven in the same manner. The standard sheets are not suitable for use with an MGF davit safe and MGF ladder safe, so FKD 406 sheets should be used instead. 7 FKD sheets will be sufficient to install a davit safe and ladder safe next to each other. The remaining standard sheets can now be pitched and driven along each side of the excavation. Backfill up against the sheets at the ends of the Walers. To further drive the sheets, MGF driving caps will need to be used. These will protect the sheet ends from damage. To allow access to the excavation during the install, at least 2 sheets should be driven to their final depth, subject to ground conditions. If this is not possible, then shorter sheets would need to be installed and replaced as the work progresses. It is now possible to excavate beneath the level of the lower frame to the required level of the next frame. The sheets must be driven ahead of the dig level as work proceeds, and the lower frame dropped as the excavation works progress. Once the lower frame is at the correct level, the hydraulic struts can be pumped out to fully preload the sheets. Excavation can continue until formation level is reached. Prior to entering the trench, edge safe, ladder safe and davit safe must be installed around the excavation. The ladder safe should be lifted using a 2-leg chain attached to the bow shackles within the flooring. The ladder safe unit can now be lifted and gently lowered in the required position on the FKD sheets. Once in position, clamp securely to the sheets. The lightweight davit safe is first installed by placing the clamp over the sheets. Note that the MGF standard sheets are not sufficiently strong enough to withstand the maximum fall arrest loads. FKD sheets are used in lieu of standard sheets installed as shown. Once the clamp is level and secure, the lower davit should be installed by simply sleeving it within the barrel on the clamp. The upper davit is installed by inserting within the lower davit connecting socket. The winch can now be connected to the connecting bracket on the lower davit by using the supplied ball lock pin. The winch wire can now be fed through the integrated pulleys. The davit is now ready to be used and the winch hook can be used with MGF harnesses. Edge safe is supplied with the relevant clamps already attached. To install the edge safe panels, simply lower the clamp jaw over the sheet pan and securely fasten in place. A ladder can now be secured to the ladder safe unit. Subject to a final inspection, the excavation is now safe to enter.